the newest president of SABG for 2026. And what is it, fourth meeting? What are we at? Fourth meeting, yes. Okay, April. So yay, I'm so excited to, we're really getting, well, we got over a big busy season and we're kind of coming down from that. But we've got a lot of plans for the summer and the fall, and I'll share with you some of the things we've accomplished so far. And keep in mind when you see the list only begins in March. I didn't even add January and February. It all begins mid-March. So let's see. Are we good now? Yes? Okay, wonderful. Great. Well, welcome to April 28th meeting of I always do this. Yes, I'm going to use the clicker. I'm just a clicker kind of person, so it just works better for me. Oh, okay. Thank you. This one right here? Okay, I forgot already. 1 month and I've already forgotten. Okay. Okay,
We just do arrows.
okay, I'll just do the arrow for now. Okay, wonderful. Whoa, thank you, Brooke. You just dropped it and then it really wouldn't have been usable. Okay, so well, welcome to our new members. Could you please raise your hand if you are a new member? Raise your hand high. Oh, that's right. That's wonderful. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Returning members, there are a lot of us, right? Yes. And then we have some visitors. I know we have some visitors that walked in earlier. There was back there. Right. Okay, wonderful. So at least 6 people. Welcome. Thank you for making it out here. The 104 heat index did not deter you. Okay, so it's a hot one, even though it wasn't supposed to be hot. It was really mucky. And thank you, Zoom, for joining us. Okay, so just real quick, I just wanted to share with you, I'm not going to read this to you, but there was a meeting April 16th. The state did a little town hall meeting, kind of a check-in of how things are going for the chapters. And a couple things were discussed, and couple of chapters, it is a difficult thing to recruit leadership. You'll hear me making a plug here for leadership in just a moment. And also the technical part, again, evidenced here tonight, is complicated for a lot of chapters. And not every chapter has the technical support based on several different, reasons, but sometimes it's because they're in the middle of nowhere and they're just really not a lot of people that they can utilize, or even the Wi-Fi isn't good where they're at. So that's something to think about for certain chapters, but and they're going to be working on it. And we're doing very well. And so they were talking about mentorships, certain chapters being mentors to other chapters that are struggling and bringing up the health overall statewide. So just wanted to share that with you. So here we begin our announcements for volunteers. So you might want to get your phones out because I have a couple of QR codes for you. The first one at the top is the Pollinatives Demo Garden Workday, May 5th. Haley Giambalvo is the lead for that. It's going to be in Converse at Pollinatives. Donald is here this evening. I think I saw him walking around over there. He's back there. So if you are interested in helping out, that group right there is actually at one of the last work days at Pollinatives. And they work really hard, and it's a beautiful area, and it is an opportunity to learn also. So if you're trying to figure out how to do your own garden, attending one of these things is really, really very important. You will walk away feeling so much more prepared for your own projects. Because sometimes some of us don't like to ask questions, but when you see or you're doing, you're learning. So there you go. At the bottom, Society Saturday at Rainbow Gardens on Bandera Road. That is a tabling event that we'll be doing. And I believe there was maybe just one more spot open to be filled. And then on the left, to the left of that, and it's not really, it's kind of going off the screen a little bit, but there is a demo garden cleanup next Wednesday. And I'll only be there about an hour and a half. It really doesn't need too much to be done to it. Just some cleaning up for the Society Saturday that's coming up after that. So if you'd like to, again, take a look at the Rainbow Gardens demo garden, learn a little bit about how to maybe trim back some of those trees. Lee Marlowe was the one who coached us up on that a couple of times that we have been to the demo garden, and I'll do my best to try and show you what she showed us. Water, gloves, clippers, but go ahead and email me, and I think it's falling off the screen, I'm not sure, but it's npsotsapresident@gmail, and just let me know that you'd like to attend, and I'll send you one of those liability forms we like to fill in. Okay, any questions on this page? All right, one more. This one, the lead for this is Zach Ritchie, and it is the Pollinator Habitat Celebration. It's going on May the 2nd, well, the Saturday, from 9 to 12, and it will also be a tabling. And Zach did say that they don't need very many volunteers, but I don't know how many he has yet. So if you are interested, just email him, and he might have a job for you to do in somewhere. Thank you, volunteers. There have been so many events. Like I was saying earlier, I'm going to try and click on this form. And I'm not, you're going to see a lot of typing, and it's really a little overwhelming, and don't try to read it all. But what you see in red are all what you will be seeing in red. So again, reminding you that I don't have January and February, and I think a first week and a half of March in here. So we're missing the HEB tabling events. We're missing the SAW Spring Bloom on this list. We're missing a few other things on here. But what you see in red are the things that we've already accomplished. If it's a Y, yes, we committed to it, and we weren't able to find a lead for it. Okay. So I put out a plea. Is there anyone who's willing to lead this up? And we're just spread out everywhere, the volunteers that show up for these events. So you can see that we try to be organized. We try to stay ahead of the game. We try to get people signed up with plenty of time, but we need more people to lead the events so we can spread out over more events. Okay, so yeah, it's and again, there are several events that aren't even on this. Thank you, Brooke. Appreciate you so much. Thank you. That right here was the Northwest Vista event. So I tabled at this event just a week ago, last Thursday, I believe. Wednesday, Earth Day. It was Earth Day, the 22nd. And it was so nice to see all of these college students willingly coming up to the table because they were very interested. You can't twist their arms to do anything. So they were coming up to this table with interest, which was just so nice to experience. And they wanted to know everything. And I got a list of people, signed up, and they want to volunteer. So cross our fingers. We'll see if we can make that happen. I'm not seeing it here on the screen anymore, Brooke, but it's okay. I think I'm almost in here. So it's just making sure that Zoom can see it, right? They can see it? Okay. Pollinatives in the Nectar Bar. Don't forget our nice partners. There was a Nectar Bar event about a week ago. Went very well in spite of the drizzle that was going on all day long. And Pollinatives has a demo garden cleanup coming up, and Donald's great about making all of the posts of everything that he has at the nursery. Fun post to listen to. And let's see, what is this one? May 26th, sorry, I don't see it here. Oh, the next meeting, yes.
It's just because of the screen.
Thank you. I need to set up a tutorial with you, Brooke, so I can be better at this. So May 26th is our, yeah, May? Yes, okay, I'm getting confused. May 26th is our next chapter meeting. And the topic is mountain cedars. And I'm really excited about this topic because there's been a lot of research lately that's been coming out about the usefulness of cedars. So things are kind of, shifting a little bit. Junipers that benefit Texas karst country. Now the presenter is Elizabeth McGreevy, founder and program director of Project Better. So if you can't join us in person, there's always Zoom. And it's not advancing.
It's because the mouse moved off of the screen.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. There's the-
Okay. Quotation. We're Andrew Labay. I just see Andrew often at the San Antonio Botanical Garden because Donald and I and a couple, I'm not sure, at least Janine, she's out in Zoom land. We volunteered. Janine's still volunteering there at the Botanical Garden under the direction of Michael Eason's project for rare and endangered. Really, really fun project or program. I would always see him being so serious and so intense, and his energy was just like, what's next? What's next? That's kind of what I would always think about when I would see him out there. He's always thinking about what's going to happen here, what's going to happen there. So I'm really excited to hear his presentation tonight. I just wanted to share with you a little bit about Andrew. He joined San Antonio Botanical Garden in 2017 as a horticulturist at an AL network. Being director of horticulture in 2020, overseeing the care and development of the gardens and the collections and landscapes. There's a spirit horticulture, plant science, Andrew expertise in greenhouse management, renewable crops, and plant conservation. He works as a viticulture program students with Texas A&M Agrolife. He now guides the education, conservation, and horticulture defense. He's also done that in integrative pedagogy from University of Montpellier, located in the South Grassroots. Welcome again.
Thank you, everyone. This evening. Thank you for the opportunity Lee, to see y'all, and just the honor really to speak to y'all. Great. So, I'm Andrew Labay, Chief Mission Officer at the San Antonio Botanical Garden. I've been there for 2 years, and it's like I'm loaded up. So I will see out the microphone and see if everyone hears me well now, transitioning to your microphone. And now people can see me on video. So we're set up and good to go. So again, thank you so much for the opportunity and the pleasure to be able to speak with you this evening. I'm Andrew Labay, Chief Mission Officer at the Garden, where it's my role to align the activities of horticulture, which is where I came up through, conservation and education, and really to champion our prime objectives that we identified out of our recent master plan of conservation and access for all. And certainly tonight, is the main topic in talking about our trees. That'll be the primary subject that I'll be talking about, our trees initiative. And then also talk a little bit about a new garden that we will be installing in the next couple of years, and an exciting pollinator meadow garden that part of botanical gardens. And so before I get into that, I want to touch upon a couple things. One, I do come bearing gifts. So I've got some wonderful 5-gallon trees here that I brought. And so throughout, I'll maybe sprinkle in some questions and for those who can answer what the tree. There are, at the very end, there's a lacy oak, um, trees that were propagated at the Botanical Garden and in most cases collected wild, like the lacy oak. There's also Mexican redbud that's collected in Pecos County and grown by the Botanical Garden. And there is Myrospermum, the arroyo, which I have to admit I'm a little embarrassed as driving over. I realized, oh, that's not native to Texas. That's native order in Mexico. It's a wonderful tree that is not invasive, grows really well here. It's a seedling off of a specimen that we have at the Botanical Garden. It was collected by Lynn Lowry, a renowned deer from Texas. So I'll sprinkle those in for giveaways. If I don't get through all of them, we'll free to the first person. At the Botanical Garden, as I mentioned, I came through horticulture, and my background is in plant science. I started in plant genetics, working in France, then moved into traditional agriculture in part of my career, in horticulture, greens of the farm, not necessarily in conservation. One of the events that I can say in my time at the Botanical Garden is the hiring of Michael Easton full-time at the garden. Michael Easton brings well over 20 years of experience to our garden in conservation. Just one of the leading experts, I would say, in native plants of Texas. I believe he holds the position of botanist within the NIPSOT, or he previously held the position of botanist for NIPSOT. But then also just a tremendous history of conservation work, working with landowners, especially in the western and southern portions. And so he actually started before me, but then 2021, and from that point, the dialogue, it's just been a pleasure and an opportunity to work with him. And the dialogue that we had across these last few years, really, I would say, set up what everything about to talk to you about, set up us going in and the ability and capacity to go in and do something like the Trees Initiative. And so just wanted to a little bit. I'll be talking about him probably often in this slides. He's probably listening. He's going to be a hard time tomorrow. Not doing so. But also a lot of these photos and this slide were developed by Mike. And to start off with this photo, so that Michael and I and our VP of Learning and Invitation, and also our volunteer coordinator, were on a hike downtown. This is downtown Kerrville. We were hiking with the director of parks for the city of Kerrville. And we took this photo of the cypress stump. So this is a stump of a tree. This tree was not growing there. It was picked up, moved, and put into that place. And during the cleanup process of the river, based on the equipment that they had, they deemed it too big and too heavy to move, and so they left it there as kind of a memory of what moved. And so this, and there's a lot from that walk. The folks from the parks department there in they would mention how this was, I think, in January, even at that point, they would lose themselves in the park because they had lost their bearings. They had lost all these trees, all of the nature that was in this park. And they would find themselves, even though they've been there for a long time, lost in that park. It's just under the Riverside Nature Center. So right above it is the Riverside Nature Center, right before the Nature Center. For those who have been out there and know that area. It is images like this that really were at the core of the beginning of the Trees Initiative. The events of July 4th, 2025 were devastating. They were devastating on an economic level, and they were devastating on an environmental level. And it was from images like this that we basically at the garden, we said, what can we do? How can we help? And where does our expertise lie? How can we harness what we know and help the community and help the ecosystem and program and beyond. And so it's from that the Development Initiative, which is the Texas Recovery for Ecological and Environmental Stability. It is a plan, and I'll talk about it's roughly about 5-year plan to replant at least 50,000 trees along the most devastated stretches of the upper Guadalupe River. It is the bullet point on hyper-local collections is extremely, and I'll touch about that going forward. That is a point that right off the bat, Michael, I knew that that was one of the central points that we wanted to develop the initiative around. And also, it is very much community based. We couldn't do this alone. And so working with a wide array of community partners, cell nurseries, the Community Foundation, the Texas Parks and Wildlife, Texas Forest Service, Hill Country Alliance. There's been a tremendous amount of partners who have jumped in to assist this effort. And so just to zoom in a little bit to talk about the area really we're focused planting trees. And so this map, and you can see our partners, it was developed by Clint Carter with the Bandera Guadalupe, or no, I'm sorry, the Bandera River Authority, Bandera County River Authority. And this was an early map kind of as we were starting to develop the areas we were planting, the areas we were collecting seed. And so for those who don't know, the most devastated areas certainly are from Hunt down to Center Point. And if you see at Hunt, there's a division, there's a North Fork and South Fork of the Guadalupe. Certainly that South Fork, it was the heaviest hit. And so from those areas of South Fork all the way down to Center Point, there's a 30-mile stretch in there that is our prime focus for replanting efforts. And our collection efforts also is at the end there. We collected there all the way down to about Guadalupe State Park area on the Guadalupe. So that's kind of in general where we're collecting and where we're focused on replanting. And the philosophy behind this. And so it's, our idea is to combine, again, having a synergy of these different backgrounds that we knew and had on staff: horticulture, conservation, restoration. So combining the best practices and the best knowledge in those different fields is at the core of this project. And as I mentioned, that hyper local focus in seed collection is critical. We knew that replanting was going to take place on the Guadalupe. We knew that people might reach out to the market to pull in, say, bald cypress. Are those cypress from the hill country? Are those cypress from Louisiana? Are they from Florida? Those trees and those plants could be coming from different places. And so to have the plants that are best suited for the long term adapted to that region, we knew that the more local we could collect the plant material, grow it out, and give it back, the best chances we have for long-term survival. And so collect local and give back to local. And again, I mentioned there's been a tremendous amount of partners that have helped us out in this process. And there's we are being very focused on how we're collecting data for this project, tracking where those seed comes from, and where it's going back. Because at the end, as I'll mention, being able to publish, being able to share this knowledge that we're going through this process could be really, really important to future cases where we might want to go in and do reforestation. And so our best practices, and so as I mentioned, and I've been bragging on Michael Leeson, this doesn't come from anywhere. It comes from a deep bank of experience. For example, the Millennium Seed Bank project is something that he worked on here in the state of Texas, and also the San Antonio Botanical Garden, which has a deep history in conservation and focus on native plants. With our partnership with the Center for Plant Conservation, is important here. Just all of the experience we have with, again, working with landowners, monitoring populations of plants in the wild, collecting, growing, and reestablishing. It comes from that background and that base. And we knew that we wanted to set it up to follow the best practices in all the different phases of it, from seed collection, processing, propagation, planting, and follow through. The goal here is not just to grow a bunch of trees, plant, and then walk away, or give plants and give away plants and then walk away. It is really kind of a long-term vision and long-term view in restoration. It's, we are in it not only to plant, but to do the act, to protect from deer, to water, and grow these plants out over time in the diversity over quantity. Okay, that's a lot of game. Into flag, right into flag. Having clones, being able to grow that is very controlled is a goal. Okay, and a lot of what you traditionally in terms of the plants, it can be clones. One of the ways that you can propagate plants, you're cloning, and then you're going about a method that produces genetically, essentially. Our approach here is an opposite approach. It's diversity. Okay, it's collecting in the means of collecting to produce wide diversity. It's growing and not throwing away, say the weak plants, but keeping as much genetic diversity as we can and getting that back into the wild in order to produce diversity as we can. So it's a little bit of a different approach than we might have had in traditional agriculture. That is in restoration, in focusing on having maximum biodiversity and having in general. And also that's in genetic diversity, even in a single population, say, like our ball cypress. And again, some of these points kind of continue that idea of ecological aesthetics. Okay, having good, sound ecological landscapes, ecologically functioning landscapes is a goal. As I mentioned, preserve that genetic integrity. Not just the best looking plants in the nursery, because you never know. Maybe that runt or that stunted plant may be that lasts a long time. Okay, it may have some advantage in the long run versus, say, the short run and what looks good in the nursery at the moment. And so horticulturally too. And so we're looking at, again, the idea of not planting and walking away, but preparing the plants and preparing everything that you plant to last long term. Okay, the root systems are sound. Make sure the plants are parted and prepared. Deer protection, watering, all these things are being considered in this project. And again, as I mentioned, the goal of developing protocols is. It's likely will not be the only case that we're doing something like this. It's about developing or how we can, or improving on model, I should say, on how we can go about restoring ecologically damaged areas. And so, again, just visually to say that this initiative really combines the best of conservation, horticulture, and restoration. And feel free as I go through this, if you've got any moments or any questions, feel free to stop me and let me know. Yeah.
Are you going to do any of the other plants in the look up here? Please. There's a lot of shrub, there's lots of forks there, we'll probably get into third too just as well. That's the other thing. And it already had less diversity because of the grazing. So
absolutely. So the question is, are you going beyond trees? Are you just focused on trees or it's absolutely both through our efforts and our partners' efforts. The Hill Country Alliance, for example, is very much focused on sedges and grasses. and we're working with them in that process in collaboration. They've already started. I should know the amount of pounds of seed that have already been distributed. So those processes are already initiated. But we knew to be successful, what we wanted to do was to try to also remain very focused as a project. And so we decided to focus on the trees. And I've got some slides in here kind of talking about the different species that we're collecting. But one thing I'll say is we're being very opportunistic in the way that we collect. If we're out and we find a bunch of frostweed, for example, we may be collecting frostweed, propagate it, and it's going to go into the mix. But it does have a core list of trees that we are looking at. But again, that's not going to stop us from planting additional things.
Some of those plants actually help stabilize soils too.
I'm sorry.
Some of those plants actually help stabilize soils too.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, especially and we're seeing some of that early recruitment even now from the grasses and sedges out. Stabilizing bank, providing the context for which some of the more the trees and the other plants will establish base coming in after in the succession of the plants that are recruited into that area. So yeah, it starts with grasses, forbs, and other things, and then will lead to trees. So. And so here's the timeline for the project. It does go through at least through 2032 with the monitoring phase. I can say the primary planting phase we're looking at is as early as this fall through the end of 2028 is what we're looking at for primary planting phase. And then we jump into a secondary phase of kind of monitoring, maybe planting and such. But this project really came together in August of last year. And we mapped things out and we jumped straight into seed collection. So the next year, seed collection. We have seed collection, processing seed, cleaning seed, getting it prepared, distributing to nurseries. They're currently growing up the crop of plants up to a plug to 1 gallon. And then going in, like I said, starting as early as this fall, going in and planting, and jumping into next year and kind of repeating that process. Seed collection, cleaning, distributing, growing it, planting up through 2028, and then monitoring through 2032. And here's the target species, certainly with the bald cypress being right at the top. Bald cypress is certainly an iconic species from the Guadalupe. As I mentioned, it was one of those species, seeing them, and especially these, the stump that I showed you at the front, it could easily be over 100 years old. Old-lived species. I've got a cut out of a cookie wedge of a cypress in my office. It's about half the size of that stump that I've counted about 70 tree rings in. And so these are very much old growth trees and an icon, as I mentioned, of the Guadalupe. So that's at the top of the list, but it doesn't stop. Bald cypress and sycamore being very much riparian, close to banks of the river. And then going up those banks, you've got other species like your oaks, walnuts, pecan, etc. But this is kind of a short list. I'll come back to this one in a second. But we continue to be an opportunistic and seeing kind of what's out there and what makes sense to collect in this for this project. And this is just a kind of for my presentation aside, and maybe my first question. So you're seeing these here that you find on a species here in Central Texas. Does anyone know what the significance of the differences that we're seeing in these two seed cones? What are they? What is that telling us? What two species are we seeing there? differentiate. Taxodium. Pardon? Yes, yes, hill country. So you're seeing two seed cones from Taxodium from Cyprus. One on the top, one on the bottom. And just wondering if anyone one is the bald cypress and which one is the Montezuma cypress. The bottom or the top? You can select the tree first. So one of the typical differences between the bald cypress and the Montezuma cypress is those pieces of the bottom. You're seeing the little points, which the term mucronate means. Taxodium mucronatum refers to that difference in the cone of balls versus the Montezuma cypress. The Montezuma cypress being a species from the valley down into Mexico, with one of the largest trees in the world. The Tule tree is a Montezuma cypress tree in Oaxaca. And so there's and again this, and if you range, the range map that we have in the top right is for the bald cypress. Again, to the point of collecting local, planting local, if you look at that range, there's a lot of these species that we're collecting that are disjunct populations or a little separate from the main portion of the range of that species. Because you find bald cypress from central Texas well east. Of course, we have the chalky alkaline soils. The environment's different. And so you're seeing this different population out in central Texas. And so again, that's a great reason for us to collect local and plant local. Mhm. It's been a while. Yeah. 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 Bald cypress. So like, although there is debate amongst botanists of whether or not the species, the cypress that you find in central Texas are bald cypress, Montezuma cypress. It does lie at a point right between those two ranges. And so, but they are classified as bald cypress. So Taxodium distinctum. Sorry, that was a little bit of an aside. Okay, so certain and land access. And so one important point is that again, we're going about this with best practices of conservation and restoration. And so we're not just going out and finding a single individual tree in a disturbed area, collecting from that tree, and that's what we're using. It's very important to spread out that collection, to collect from a number of individuals, and also not to necessarily just collect from those disturbed areas, because those disturbed areas can add to the seed bank where they're at. We can find other areas in the vicinity of the damage in the hill country and select the small portions from those trees, and then leave the rest to really add to the seed bank. So minimum of 2 trees per collection location, 20% of the seed in that area. Those are kind of some of the standards we're using for collection. And bulbs produce a tremendous amount of seed, and so there is a lot available. We can find the vast majority of the trees needed for the project from a single individual. But that's not the goal. Again, diversity, genetic diversity, collecting from a wide number of individuals is a goal of the project. And again, identifying, as mentioned in the question, additional species beyond the lists we have. And seed processing. Thank you for anyone who has helped out at the Botanical Garden thus far in cleaning and preparing our seed to send to nurseries. This is the next step. And so we're bringing it back properly, giving some pull to the seed for stratifying, and then going through the process of cleaning it. And for those who have ever cleaned wild cypress seed and the strong fragrance and the resin that comes from the seed pods, it is intense. The room as they were cleaning it, and that fragrance just hits you. And I could imagine that folks go home and smell that fragrance for many days after cleaning it. So it is a thankless task to help us in cleaning that. We've had hundreds and hundreds of hours in assisting this project already, and will be continuing seed and process seed. So there's a lot of volunteer opportunities for this, in addition to the planting phase. And so as I mentioned, we've got about a dozen nurseries in our region that we've partnered with. And so that's another unit for this project. These are wholesale nurseries that primarily focus on native plants. In our minds, it is a good thing for the local green industry, nurseries, to have them grow it out and then to buy it back and give it back to the community in Kerrville. And so, again, we're tracking our seed lots through the full process, tracking it from where to what we give nurseries to make sure we fully get back and keep the individual species that we're working with. So tracking is an important part of this, and also just documenting the data that we're collecting off of this in terms of propagation, germination, timing for seed collection, all of these things, these topics that are just have anecdotal information about, but collected the data and report on that could be really important for growing these native species in time. And then outreach education. I think education is a really, really important part. Yes, it's going to be impactful to plant 50,000 trees in the Guadalupe. But it's also impactful being very intentional about conservation and talking about why this is important and how much of an impact it's going to have in the area over time. The Guadalupe would regrow the plants in that area. But the ICE project is to provide a helping hand to speed this process along. Also being very intentional and having the ability to speak to the importance of conservation work and the importance of building back our green spaces and maintaining time. So again, I think that educational component is just as important as the impact of 2,000 trees. And I'd also like to say, so we've been, Michael Eason has been developing a series of workshops. We've done a couple. There's actually one coming up this Saturday in Kerrville. This is reserved, it's full, although there will be additional workshops. He's speaking on topics such as seed collection, all these topics that we talk about, seed collection, planting, and preparing folks, to disseminate the information, but B, to help train volunteers for the project. So certainly kind of keep an eye for, we'll have additional volunteer opportunities in the future and additional outreach opportunities. And so in planting, so again, this is not, we're not going into like we do and plant beautiful, organized landscapes, but this is being very intentional in thinking about plants are found in different areas. It's a very much a site by site, or will be very much a site by site approach to planting, looking at what you find, what kind of soils do you find at the site? What kind of, do you find, say, heavy gravel bars, areas, and tailoring the plants that we have in our palette to what we're at the site, and not producing a lovely suites of cypress or sycamore. We're being intentional about planting in a way that produces a functional ecosystem. And so thinking about that for those sites, we're also assessing those sites for many different points of access, ease of follow-up and monitoring of those trees, the partners that we develop on that site. We're doing both public and private sites. We have access for volunteers to go follow up and water and so for that aftercare. So those are some of the factors that we have in choosing the site. And of course, the level of disturbance of the site. And as I mentioned, the goal is to plant within 15 miles of the construction site. We've got about a 30-mile stretch of the river that we're primarily. And also, we're very mindful of the deer population, the beaver population that can easily just see this as we're providing food for them, planting out in the Guadalupe. And so tree protection is a component. This can range from, there could be sites where we can go in and fence and simply exclude deer from that planting site, or to tree guards. And so these are just it can be biodegradable or other materials, but just protect a tree up to a certain height. So that tree could be browsed on guarding a good chunk of the tree below, and certainly the root system from being browsed all the way, providing a better opportunity for it to survive over time. We do know that we are going to have loss over time of the plants in this process. Speaking with Michael, I know some of the standards of restoration projects in terms of percent can be quite low, as low as 20% and below. We're targeting going upwards of 70 on this project in terms of take, but we do know that we will have loss. We are going in and we'll be planting relatively tight, kind of expecting that loss and predicting the opportunities to go back in and replant certain areas as needed. And then as monitoring, collecting the data, being able to report and develop a model based on the things that we're reviewing in Kerrville is very important. We're also seed banking. So at the Botanical Garden, we have a seed bank, and we're expanding over time in the next few years, our seed bank. And so a portion of this is to collect and bank in case we need to jump into action sooner in the future. And here's the goal of producing, as I mentioned, this model of being a long-term resource for conservation projects throughout our region and beyond. Is a goal. The Trees Initiative. It is very much and bringing as many partners together as possible, private landowners, other nonprofits, other institutions together to carry it out. I've mentioned education. I think just carrying out the word of conservation, carrying out the thoughts of conservation, having that on the forefront of people's mind when we're developing in time in areas like the Guadalupe, I think is an important part of this project. And again, we're not in it to just plant and walk away. It's to be stewards of this area, to plant and foster the development and the reforestation of the Guadalupe for many different reasons: economic, for culture, for us. What do we think about when we think about the hill country in the Guadalupe? We think about these wild spaces, and so that's in our minds as part of this project. And so here's a slide just for those interested in volunteerism at the garden. There's a lot of benefits and activities mentioned there. There's a QR code in the bottom that jumps you straight to our volunteer page that Chloe Blumenberg leads, and so it jumps straight to our volunteer coordinator, and you can speak with her about all sorts of opportunities at the garden, including our trees initiative. I'll take a pause right there for any questions you might have. Yes, sir.
Your organization, Trees organization, is in dialogue with the San Antonio River Authority. Asking because the meet and reach is there were successes and most learned in that process.
Yes. Yes, we absolutely are. We've long been partners in. Oh, I'm sorry. So, are we in partner? Is the San Antonio Botanical Garden partnering or working with the San Antonio River Authority? Because the San Antonio River Authority has a history of restoration along the San Antonio River. And yes, I can say that we have long partnered with the River Authority, certainly for those who've been out to the garden, our water saver community displays. That is for that was something that in my time they formed a good partnership with the River Authority. We are looking at projects like that for guidance. We could also say, just looking back to things like the reforestation in Bastrop was one of the kind of first ideas that popped into mind. The reforestation efforts along the Blanco River um, from that flood, and so in addition to like the San Antonio River Authority. So looking at those models as well. Yes, ma'am.
Being hyper local is really important, but climate change, is there any consideration for future? Like you talked about that, there's a switch called sweet.
Arroyo sweetwood, like plants from Mexico. Yeah. That's a really good point and a really good question. So the question is, are you considering species thinking forward in terms of how the climate may move in the future? Are we thinking forward in terms of the species that we're replanting in these areas? I will say that we are focused on, again, that hyper local collections component that has us tremendously focused in that vein. And so it's not to say that there's not discussions of that, of those points. I think it is a really good topic to continue the dialogue on in terms of what might be better suited in the future and in those areas. So yeah, that's a good question. But no, it's currently the focus really on the project right now is collecting right there locally.
Concerned about invasive species taking hold of
Yes, and there are a lot of I'm so sorry. I'm just so eager to jump into the answer to the question. So are we concerned with invasive species in taking hold or impacting the planting efforts? Yes, and there's again working with local nonprofits like the Hill Country Alliance and others. There's certainly a lot of education that's being sent out to local landowners and folks, really educating people about invasive species and trying to to bring that up in the forefront. It certainly could be an impact. I can say just kind of a personal experience. I've always known that Vitex is invasive in our area, but until I started working on this project and walked those spaces, I've never really seen the true impact that it can have in those areas. It, along with several other invasive species, are certainly some of the first plants that are popping up. And so yes, that'll be a focus, making sure that in general, from a horticultural standpoint, to be successful, you have to control weeds. And some of the worst weeds certainly are those invasives in that area. And so controlling those for our plantings will be important, and also educating people on the impact of invasive species will be really important.
Andrew, do you know of any other tree initiative project in the United States like this one?
Yeah, beyond. So the question is, do you know of any other projects such as this in the United States? And I mentioned a couple of local projects, disasters, Bastrop replanting, Blanco River. There also Naples Botanical Garden in South Florida has a project currently, and I don't know the title of of that particular project, but they're replanting beach that was impacted by hurricane damage. And so that also is a model that we look at in developing this project. It's a good question.
Did the backdrop restoration concentrate on diversity and local aspects of the collection?
So the question is, did Bastrop focus on diversity or was it strictly pines? That's a good question. I don't actually know the full. My um, understanding of the project was it was very much focused on pines. Yeah.
That was what I heard too.
Mhm.
I heard botanists say that they didn't like that.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know the details in that sense for that project, but uh, you know, it certainly is an important point that we're looking at in our project. Our ideas of conservation really focus on increasing biodiversity in the state. So,
We have time for one more question. Maybe a final question. Yes. None. None? And Joe here can tell.
yes. So the question is, so there's funding was a question, and how truly this project is impacting the DNA of the botanical garden. And so one aspect, I'll start with the how it's changed. We have, as I mentioned, had conservation, native plants, all the things, you know, aspects has long been a component of the botanical garden. In many ways, this is a continuation of the long history and work that's being done at the botanical garden. Though I can also say, yes, it is focusing us on our borders in a way that we have not done in the past. And I think it's a very, very good thing showing how botanical gardens are not beautiful places to take a walk and learn some plants and maybe get married and all those other things. But they core objectives, our core values are really important, and certainly conservation. And this is not only what we can do, botanical gardens across the country can do beyond those borders. And yes, it is focusing things going forward for several years in terms of our objectives. And in terms of the funding, it's coming in from a variety of different sources, private, public. There was just announced a large donation from the Kirk County Fund, and others have given to the project. So a variety of sources in terms of funding and our own operational funds going into this as well. So a variety, and yes, it is having a strong impact on the garden, and we really believe in this as having a strong impact on our community beyond the rules. Yeah. Well, I did have a second portion, portion of the team. I have run a big problem. Talk about it. Yeah, I can keep it to about 5 minutes. Sorry about a little long, but there's we in 2024 we went through a master planning process at the garden. And this is looking into the future for new gardens, new constructions, what's needed at the garden. And one of the premier pieces in new garden that was developed, or that was this and right here I've got a rendering This is an early rendering of what this garden will look like. We will work with Reed Hildebrand, landscape architects, for this process. You're seeing uh, some themes and such here on the slide as well. This space is right at the heart of the garden, and I will have to say right in the middle of some of the older historic portions of the garden. Our concert lawn, our old-fashioned garden, our rose garden, our formal gardens. So part of this project is to kind of update, keep the spirit of these gardens in this area, but update them in matching the newer expanded areas. For those who've been and seen the newer expanded portion of the garden that we opened in 2017, the culinary garden, the family adventure garden. This is keeping with some of the aesthetics and the themes and expanding that look across the garden, but also keeping some of the themes that are in these spaces to begin with. The old-fashioned garden is a monarch way station, and so it is a pollinator garden. And so at its core, this pollinator meadow garden will be 2.5 acres. It'll be one of the largest gardens, one of the largest individual gardens we have at the Botanical Garden. We are looking to jump into design for this. This is a rendering giving us a feel for what direction we could head. It's not necessarily the final look of it, but this is going to be a 2.5 acre garden right in the center, focused heavily on native plants, biodiversity. We're looking to develop our oak collection will be a big component of this, and also our milkweed collection as a part of this will be big pieces of it. Let's see. And there's just a rendering map kind of showcasing that area, with the bottom oval being our current Greehey lawn with the wisteria arbor right there at the bottom, and you're kind of seeing the scope across the gardens. But again, just being a living classroom, an example of how you can kind of grow a wide diversity of plants that supports pollinators, and it's just a beautiful place year round. As much, we like to say color year round, but interest in garden and beauty throughout the years, whether it be August or January, in this space. And so this is an exciting new garden coming up, and certainly to support our pollinators like our monarchs. We live in such an important spot in the Texas tunnel, for those who know it, on the migration path of our migrating monarch butterflies, and really kind of speaking to support not only the monarchs, but all of our pollinators out there. So more to come, design phase starting this year, leading into next year, and then a year of construction. So we've got about 2 years out for this project, and so much more to come from it. One more question? Yeah.
So I love insects, so this is wonderful and exciting. There's pollinators that are the beetles,
Yeah.
moths.
Yeah.
So are you incorporating them into this, and does this mean less fertilizer at home? I don't even know which one.
Yeah, it's all of the practices for pollinator gardens, which in my mind start with the widest diversity of native plants is at the core of it, having as much bloom and opportunity out there. All water is a part of it, the practices is a part of it, the way that we clean the garden, the chemicals that we use. We strongly focus on an IPM approach to gardening already. This will be intensified, for this. And so yes. Well, thank y'all very much. I'll stick around. I didn't get to ask all my questions to give away the plants, and so it's first come, first serve on the trees.
Well, applause is not enough to thank Andrew and the community of the tree project, the Tree Initiatives project, and it's a very inspirational, hopeful, and you're stitching the river back one seed at a time. So thank you for that. It's beautiful. So that's about it. Thank you, everyone. We still have some plants over at the table if you'd like to take a look and maybe see if you can cart one of these home. Get to it quickly. Good night, everyone. Be safe driving home. Bye, Sue.